Welcome to this week's Standby Generator podcast. I'm your host, Jim Sweatman, and we have a very special guest here today, Keith Williams, who used to work for me back when I owned my standby power dealership up here in upstate New York. Keith is going to be joining us and talking about his experience being a standby generator technician working for us and his perspective. We're going to ask him a few questions. Keith right now is in the marine industry working on big ass boats, right, Keith, out there?
Yes, sir.
So, Keith, why don't you just give us a little bit of background about you and how you got interested in the standby generators and how long you were there, and then we'll ask you a few questions.
Yeah. So I started with Jim um, in the about 2010 era of the business, and I come in as a generator mechanic to start doing lube work and then work my way into major maintenance and stuff like that, dealing with home standbys, and then branching into commercial and light industrial units. Um, my background stems from small engine, medium duty engine, all the way to 15, 16 liter diesel.
Go
I
ahead.
gained experience in that field by being in a generator dealership. So, with that said, we covered anything air cooled, liquid cooled, gasoline, gaseous, natural gas, propane, diesel fuel units. Learned a lot. Learned how to be a good tech. Learned how to be um, point 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 the customer in the right direction for maintenance, and also
Yeah.
make sure that we took care of the customer and educated them also.
Yeah, perfect. So you were with me for about 10 years, right? Almost
Yes, I
almost 10
was.
years.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And then the whole mess happened over
Yeah.
at Home Power. We got bought out and bought out again,
Yep.
and that just caused
Yeah.
the whole thing, but that's a whole nother podcast that we'll talk about,
Yeah,
Keith.
that's a different story.
Uh,
So
so, Keith, a quick question for you. Walk us through what you consider the perfect maintenance visit from start to finish. What would you
so
consider the perfect maintenance visit from start to finish?
so it kind of stems back from being ready to go that morning of your
Mm-hmm.
on duty. Arriving a few minutes ahead of time. Um, if you're 5 minutes early, you're late.
Mm-hmm.
um, Make sure that you are prepared, you are ready to go, and it all stems from the night before or the morning of having your stuff together and getting to the customer's door, ringing that doorbell, and presenting yourself and the company for whoever you're working for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Polite, courteous, listen to the customers' um, needs, wants, and then also address the future.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it all stems from being on point, being on time, being ready to go, and having your equipment, in hand or
Mm-hmm.
nearby, ready to go and get the service executed, and then follow up at the end and address any concerns or your maintenance agreement for the next year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it stems from appearance,
Yep.
knowledge, even if you're a new tech, just being ready to go, showing
Yep.
enthusiasm.
Yep.
So
So part of doing the perfect maintenance visit is, like you said, being on time. It's about presenting yourself professionally at the door, right? Not
yes,
not
sir.
having ripped up, torn up clothes with her, not being all hung over from the night before,
No,
right?
no, not at
So
all.
you didn't have any problem with that,
Presentable.
but there are techs that that we had working for us with that. And
It happened.
then yeah, and then also and then going through the actual maintenance itself. What was a typical maintenance visit? What was that like? Or what did you have to do?
So a typical air cooled maintenance, um, a couple quarts of oil, the OEM or equivalent oil filter, set of spark plugs, air cleaner, and your basic hand tools.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to have a snap-on toolbox to do generator maintenance. You can actually perform it with your Craftsman tools that are every day on the shelf at your local auto parts store or Lowe's or Home Depot. If and then going out to the unit, opening it up, identifying any issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What real quick on that? What were some issues that you saw when you opened the hood? Could you tell that there would be a problem with that
oh yeah,
generator from like
some
50
days.
feet away?
Some days, yes. So there was days where you'd round a corner and you would see that the dirt in front of it is just like brownie mix, and you're like, okay, this thing's got a major oil leak.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's puked all the oil all over the place in the
Mm-hmm.
yard. Or you get around a corner and the bees are swarming it, and
Oh,
you're like, uh oh,
oh,
we need to address the little whoopee in the lid that they've been
mm-hmm.
going in and out of all year, and getting that. Or
Oh,
in the wintertime, the snow's packed around it. You're actually using a shovel and you're poking at it to see where it is. You got to go find it.
oh, can't even
Um,
find it. There's so much snow drift you can't even find it.
yeah, so it'd be packed full of snow. All the stuff's frozen and caked with snow and compacted. And the customer claims they heard it run last week, but it's been down for 3 months. Um, it's an open ball. It's an open bag of what you could find and see and come up on.
Mm-hmm.
You could open a lid and have like I said, oil in there. You could open a lid and have a engine with the side of the block blown off because of a rod going through the side of the block. You have starter laying in the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
Dead battery. That was the best one, is the battery that was exploded, and it literally has battery acid all over the place. Um,
Now, real quick, Keith, when you saw that, what was the process with the customer when you saw that it just wasn't going to happen that day and that there were issues?
my biggest thing was is one, open it up, make sure it's safe, that I can bring them out to it. Make sure something's not gonna hurt the customer or me, or somebody walking by. You don't know who's in the yard with you. It
Mm-hmm.
could be kids. So my big thing was is get the customer, have them, if they're able bodied, have them come out and visually see the damage that has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The oil and the
yep,
starter motor
yep.
laying there
So
and the everything. So the first thing you do, you identify the issue,
yep,
right? You get the customer out there and you show them kind of the starting point, right, of
yep,
exactly what you're dealing with.
exactly, exactly. So educate the customer, and
Yeah.
and be courteous of what's going on in their own yard or in their or wherever it is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
use don't use harsh words, but say, hey, we have major damage, we have a major malfunction, um, and we need to address this. Otherwise, you're not going to have a standby generator for your
Mm-hmm.
safety when the power
Mm-hmm.
goes out next time.
Mm-hmm. So when you were doing that, let's do something simple. Say the starter motor is laying on the side of the thing there. Um, we used to have right there with you is pricing that was already worked up, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
that if a starter motor or a controller was bad or something that could be fixed right there, you already had numbers available. So it wasn't
Hmm.
calling the office, I'll be right back to you, or be right back. I mean, the efficiencies that we had with you guys so that you were able to execute that repair. Explain that a little bit.
The biggest thing is we were very well prepared in what we did every day to have pricing for the parts that pretty much covered the bulk of the generator. We had pricing under warranty. We had pricing out of warranty. We had what was actually cut and dry pricing, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a huge plus because us as techs, we never felt like we were going to be blindsided with a number. We were very well prepared, very well educated about if we had to do a starter, it was it was pretty much this price, and it was on a truck. And yes, Mr. Customer, we can take care of this right now. We have the proper tools, we have the proper parts, we have the proper pricing and procedures to get
Hmm.
it into
Yeah.
customers' equipment and in their hands and collect payment at the end of the visit.
Yeah.
It
And part of
was
that,
very
yeah,
efficient.
yeah, part of that process was we had the pricing right there and we showed
Yep.
them, so it wasn't a makeup price.
No.
Two, you had the part right on the
Yep.
truck with you, so that saved a another mobilization cost or time in
It was
calling the
huge,
office.
huge
And
savings.
three, we had the work order right there. And what we made sure, and we learned this from our experience, is that we made sure that the customer agreed to it and then signed that work order before we executed the work, right?
100%. So
Because
there
what
was
happens if
never.
we didn't do that? What were some
Oh,
of the things that happened?
oh my God, we would have folks say they wanted a second opinion. We
Yeah,
would have
after you've
folks.
already done the work, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
oh, well, hey, my mechanic buddy can get the part. He can put it in. We can do it for less. There was major learning experiences leading up to this perfect pricing procedure.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a learning time,
Mm-hmm.
and by God darn it, Jim Jim only took a couple steps and he had it aced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
so us as
So
techs felt comfortable quoting a
yeah,
job and
yeah,
executing.
and I think the key word is comfortable because they were all fair pricing. It wasn't,
Yeah,
oh, Mrs. Smith, I see you live in a very, very nice home.
yeah,
So it's $1,200 for the starter motor. But then you go to another location and it's $495. It was
yeah.
flat fee, including
Yep,
labor. It was that. So that made everybody easy and comfortable, getting all that. Now, when you get done, so you do the regular maintenance or you do the repairs, part of what made things very successful for everybody, Home Power Systems as a company and you as a technician, was to make sure that we walked away with a signed maintenance visit for maybe next year, the next 2 years, or the next 3 years. What were the advantages to the customer to make sure that they had a prepaid maintenance contract?
the big one was the priority service. When
Yep.
the power went out and you needed help, we would come.
Yep.
And most of the
Yeah.
time there was definitely a perk of having them sign 1 year, 2 year, 3 year maintenance agreement with percentage off.
Yep.
It gave
Yep.
it gave priority on call, it gave priority parts and
Mm-hmm.
timing to the
Yep.
customer, in
And
executing it.
and ready, it locked them in for 3 years without a price increase.
Yes,
So it
exactly.
was just a tremendous advantage. And being a business owner, when you guys were coming back, say you had 4 maintenance visits, 5 maintenance visits that day, and say half of them you were coming back with prepaid maintenance contracts, it was just fantastic for one, for a business owner, right? The cash flow and locking that customer in so that our competitor didn't get a chance to go in there and do it. But more importantly, you as a technician knows that next year you'll be at that house. So you've locked
Yeah.
in your next job and
Yep.
you've got it down for next year that you're going to be at that customer's house. And we always try to have the same tech go there so they're familiar with the generator, they're familiar with the problems. Even though ahead of time you pulled the information and you grabbed the file, that's when we had all paper files. You would grab the file and you would see what the history was on that generator. And hopefully you were the one that had been there the year before, or even 2 or 3 years before. And the customers liked that, right? They felt comfortable with that, right?
Yeah. The big thing is like Jim said, with the whole locking a customer in, we guaranteed that us as techs were in that driveway next year or the next 3 years ahead.
Yep.
They also felt comfortable with the tech that they had over the time. there would be people that would call in and say, "Hey, we want Keith," or "Hey, we want Joe," or "Hey, we want
Mm-hmm.
Jim," or "Hey, we want X."
Mm-hmm.
So it was huge for the customer to have that feel of the tailored man at the doorstep, knew where
Mm-hmm.
everything was, and lots of times, quite frankly, at times there was people that leave the door open and they go off to work, or they would be like, "Hey, transfer switches in the garage, generators around the corner, gates unlocked. Keith, just do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're good."
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very good system
Mm-hmm.
of operation. It was very quick. It was very efficient. It was very
Mm-hmm.
neatly organized,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes back to the scheduling team too. To
Mm-hmm.
make sure that the scheduler has everything, all the book, all the stuff booked and
Yeah.
efficient.
Well,
So
it was a relationship thing, right? I mean, they
yep,
almost became your friends, right? Like
yeah,
I remember the ones that had the car collections, the
oh
one
yeah,
that and it was fun to chat with them.
yep,
So not only when I was there running the show, we never did more than 4 or 5 because a maintenance visits a day because I wanted us to build that relationship with the customer. I didn't
yeah,
want to do like I talked to dealers across the country and they're doing 8 and 10 maintenance visits a day. And I go, well, how can you do that? Well, they're never home. We just kind of show up. I go, well, what do you do for signing long term maintenance agreements? Well, we just kind of send them something. We send them an invoice. And then I ask about, okay, well, what's your retention rate for those customers? And they start talking about 40, 50% never come back. I said, because there's absolutely, there's absolutely no relationship there.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So we would always spend time with that customer and develop that relationship. Now, if we were able to, there's a lot of times that we had generators that were 3 and 4 in the same neighborhood. Yes,
yep,
we could bang out 6 maintenance visits a day because they're all
yeah,
right there. And, we weren't worried about mobilization and, travel time uh, between it. So, those were some of the very important things that we did while you were on site. Keith, real quick, what education, making sure that the techs are up to date and educated, not only on the air cooleds, but the liquid cooleds. How important is that for a standby power dealer to invest in their techs and education? So, what are things that happen when you're not educated and trained?
you have lack of efficiencies is huge. You have lack of knowledge level on the product in front of you. The big thing is understanding the product, understanding the operation of it, and making sure that you do your Generac or Kohler modules and go through the steps of the education. Um, it helps when you have no support after hours. It helps when you are on nights and weekends,
Mm-hmm.
when you are down in a storm. But it is extremely important that the techs continually do their maintenance training on the equipment that is at their skill set level. Um, you start an air cooled one. You go to your small liquid cooleds, and then branch out to your larger liquid cooled industrial units, and just understanding what's going to be in front of you on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting to do on your maintenance schedules? Air cooled, obviously there's no coolant. Liquid cooled, you get into more systems, more complexity. Air cooleds are air fuel spark. Liquid cooleds. Well, we got air fuel spark. We got a coolant. We have a
Mm-hmm.
radiator to address.
Mm-hmm.
We have multiple levels of operation at the larger level equipment. Um, you get into diesel fuel, treating your diesel fuel on site. Making sure that stuff doesn't fail you when it's zero
Mm-hmm.
outside
Mm-hmm.
or hot outside. So
So
it's huge.
yeah, so I just remember when I actually was doing maintenance myself when I first started the company. I actually did some installs myself, Keith, believe it or
Yeah, I
not,
know.
early.
I saw the paper.
And I had to do maintenance on it. There are there's nothing worse than when you're standing there and the generator's not working properly and you have no clue why.
Oh yeah.
And the customer is standing right there next to you, whether it's an air cooled or you've got the operations manager from the facility standing there,
Yep.
and you don't know what's going on because you don't have the technical knowledge.
Yep.
Explain some of the situations that you've had,
Oh,
some of the worst case
I
that.
I remember I remember going to GE inspections group and seeing the bottom of the radiator literally delaminated into coolants out of the unit, laid on a pad underneath it, and they were like, "Hey, we noticed it was wet under there after the last rainstorm. We don't, we haven't heard it run. It's got an alarm going off in the building each week. We just kept resetting it.
Mm-hmm.
Me as a tech, we get the radiator in it, do the repair, and all of a sudden we get the thing hot, and the exhaust blankets are on fire, or they're smoldering very well. And I'm calling the office, going, "Hey, we have more parts to order." And then they're like, "Well, we should have been more thorough about our initial visit, so Keith can show up with everything to get it all done and be a one hit wonder."
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. There was starters that were broken off engine blocks. There was, again, low
Mm-hmm.
coolant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there
Yeah.
was there was all sorts of stuff. There was fans with fan blades through radiators.
Yeah.
Air cooleds with major oil leaks, and it's
Mm-hmm.
throughout the stator and rotor. And we're out there
Mm-hmm.
with Dawn Dish Soap trying to clean the thing and salvage it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's endless. Air cooled batteries explode,
Mm-hmm.
battery acid all over the place at the
What do you
time.
do? What do you do when you recommend to the customers? Because batteries were always the biggest thing.
They
We
were.
recommend changing every 3 years, I think, because it was
Yep.
the biggest failure item on the air cooled units and anything else. What did you
Well,
say to a customer when you recommend a battery change and they didn't accept it? How did you handle that? What are some of the things that you found the best way to handle that?
it would kind of be a deep breath thing when they said no, and it would pretty much always result in, by the end of the visit, "Hey, let's do the battery."
Mm-hmm.
Because I would always say, the battery is the weakest link of the gen set. If you don't have a good battery in this, it's not going to start and do its job. It could be zero out, it could be 100 out. Your equipment's got to start and run for your outage. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a good battery, I'm going to see you soon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a chance that it's going to be way more money because it's going to be after hours on a service call
Yep.
when
Yep.
you need it the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I remember on our sheets we used to put, recommended battery declined.
yep,
And then when there was that outage, or they haven't heard the thing start in 2 months, even though
yep,
they don't listen to it every Wednesdays at noon that they go off, that I remember, we try to politically be correct and say, oh, especially Kelly used to do this. Oh, I see, Mrs. Smith, that on September 10th of last year, we recommended a battery change, and hopefully that's not it. So we would kind of give them a little shot in the arm,
yep.
when that, or you're right, when it was an outage and it was overtime, that $150 battery was now $250
Yes, it
battery,
was.
that we would go in there. So with that,
Yeah.
quick question for you. There's standby power dealers out there that are going to be listening to this podcast. And what do you wish more dealers understood about what it's like being in the field? If you had a chance to, I guess, be the voice of the technician for a few minutes,
The
um, for the average dealer out there, what would you explain to them about what it's like being a standby generator tech out there?
My thing would be is maybe take one day and ride with your tech
Great. Yep.
for ride along, and see what the efficiencies and inefficiencies are. Look at the way your equipment's set up, your service vehicle set up. Look at how things are going in the field after the install's a year old or 10 years old or 15 years old, and see what's going on, because 9 times out of 10 your 1 year old unit, I used to be able to breeze through in about 35 minutes and pretty much be comfortable, have the customer at whatever level they were going to do for the next year. They probably already had a maintenance agreement, but educate them too, because at that point in time they've probably lost some
Mm-hmm.
education on a unit. But the big thing is that I can say is follow your tech once and go
Mm-hmm.
out and see what's going on in
Yep.
the field,
Yep.
because if they're a senior guy that's been there 10 years and they are all of a sudden becoming longer at visits, there might be something that they're doing. They
Mm-hmm.
might be tailoring a piece of equipment so it keeps going. They
Mm-hmm.
might be, putting a little extra elbow grease into something. That way they're not going to get a call. Your young tech, go out there, watch them work, watch them operate, because there might be spots where you can speed them up,
Mm-hmm.
and get them up to speed, or you can see an inefficiency of okay, hey, this part of this process is not working at all. We need
Mm-hmm.
to address this,
Mm-hmm.
to make things more streamlined. It's endless.
Yep.
My big thing that I used to take away is, as the equipment's getting older, it's getting harder to maintain.
Yep.
Well, the new equipment's easy. It's kind of running itself at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The old stuff, old Gen 1 Generacs with mechanical governors,
Mm-hmm.
or Kohlers, they needed extra love with settings and making sure that they'd run top notch each week. I used to be able to stand at a generator in a township, and I'd hear other stuff start in the next road over, and I'd be like, that one's running too fast. It's going to go out and overspeed the time to see it. And then you get one that is misfiring and loping and stuff like that, and oh, well, that's a Brazen Stratton that's down the street that's running hot, and it has a lack of air or lack of fuel because it was misinstalled.
Mm-hmm.
So, and 9 times out of 10, it it was endless. But
Mm-hmm.
the big thing is go out once with your senior
Yep.
tech or any of your techs, see
Yep.
what's going on, and understand the old stuff. The old stuff is killing us. The
Yep.
people don't want to spend the money to update, but it's also taken us a minute longer to make sure that it's all running appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So today's electronic governors, they are spot on. They're going to run 60 hertz. They're going to run that.
Mm-hmm.
Can they have a stepper motor, bracket or linkage fall apart? I saw it. It happened. The ball end of the linkage will fall off.
Mm-hmm.
The old stuff, the governor springs, the screw would loosen up, the spring would be laying out of there, the thing's just floating there, and the governor's not working right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a very fine line where the tech can get derailed
Mm-hmm.
with a major issue,
Mm-hmm.
or they can make time on certain units and get ahead, for the
Yep.
day.
Yep.
So it's a big experience to have the operations manager or the owner to ride with
Yep.
you for a day to
Yep.
understand the operation of the field.
Yep. Because sometimes at the weekly tech meetings that we
Yep.
used to have, and hopefully dealers are having that, when you would voice concerns, about, hey, the older units are taking longer. We need to make sure we put an hour and a half or 2 hours on that, to make sure that that's voiced so that we're not rushing through and make and that and that the operations people and the owners are listening to the technicians,
Yep.
right? If they're making recommendations out there, they need to listen to that, because I've said this 100 times. I'm going to say it again. The techs are the profit centers in the field. Every
Yep.
tech makes you money.
Yep.
And the more you take care of the technicians, the more you listen to them, the more you give them the tools, the training, the equipment, the organized vans, everything, that they're going to turn around and be happy with you, and you're not going to lose technicians. And on that, I get a lot of discussions with a lot of dealers here in the last year that I've been doing this is um, tech, generator tech, the retention of the employees.
Yeah.
What would cause you as a generator tech to say, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm done working here. What are some of the things that you could see that a generator tech would say, forget it, I'm out of here?
The big one is having the management listen to the tech, even though the tech might be squeaky, we might be looking for the grease. The big thing is the tech conveying the issues in the field, and the management does need to listen, or do a ride along, um, or go shadow, go back through. And I think Jim did this. He'd roll through and check our work, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So the big thing is understanding the tech's issues
Okay.
with, okay, is it time in the field? Is it time at the customer? Is it hey, he's trying to get more responsibility, so he wants more money an hour to feed his family. Is it's many levels.
Mm-hmm.
um the big one that I had is the equipment to make me more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And it grew as the tech grew,
Yes.
and it would
Well,
come down to
yep. Very,
the
yeah, that's
frustrations
very well
of
put. That's a
equipment.
equipment, tools,
Yeah.
experience. The more experience you have, the more we have to keep investing in
Yep.
that technician. And yeah, so yeah, I never thought about that. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
The big thing was for me was is the units got bigger, and you and I had this conversation many times in the evenings, is the units get bigger and my van stayed the same size. So I'd run out of real estate,
Oh, that's true. That's
and I'd
true.
run out
That's
of real
right. That's right.
estate.
We had you in the Ford van, and oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was like,
I'm
I
doing a
need, and
700
that's
kW. I'm doing a 1 megawatt job.
that's
I'm
right.
moving. I'm moving like 30 gallons of oil through the van.
That's right.
And the oil
That's
filters are
right.
the size. The oil filters are diameter of a basketball, and we could carry 5 gallon pails in the basement of a building to catch the oil coming out of the oil filter. So you know,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah, the bigger the generators, yeah, you have to make adjustments, especially if you start committing to the commercial side of things.
oh yeah,
You get the air cooled, okay, that's fine, right?
yeah,
You can get things going, but you move into commercial stuff, especially anything over 150 was always kind of my mental breaking point. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You definitely were in a different ball game, especially when you start landing multiple commercial contracts. Like we
yep,
had customers that had, you know, 10 or 12 or 15 liquid cooleds, and we had to be able to stock parts on that, and that was
yep,
part of the agreement that we had with them,
yep.
is not only having the techs that were educated to work on it and troubleshoot that unit, but also having the parts. And that's all part of moving into the commercial side of things. And that gets real complicated,
The-
as far as that go. Keith, real quick, years and years and years ago, when I was at one of the Generac dealer conferences, Aaron Yegfeld would say, you know what? Pretty soon, not long in the future, that current customer that you have is going to need a generator replacement, and you guys need to think about that customer replacing that generator. And we were just starting out. I was only in business for 4 or 5 years. And I'm thinking to myself, these are 15-year units average, right?
yep,
They can
yep,
go more, they can go less, but it's average. That's what the design criteria is for an air cooled unit. Doesn't matter what it is, what manufacturer it is. Um, and I'm like, no, that isn't going to happen. As the longer we were in business, it came to a point where 15 to 20% of our new generator installations, right, were replacement units.
yep.
What were some of the things that you identified that generator and needed to be replaced, and then how did you approach the customer with that? Because you're the technician, you're not a salesperson, right? So
Yep.
the customer is probably going to listen to you more than anything else. What were some of the approaches that you would tell the customer when that unit was just about done? What were the identifying factors?
The first identifying factor is the lack of its ability to withstand a 6 to 8 hour outage. If
Mm,
it couldn't withstand a 6 to 8 hour a year weekly test, it was not going to make it an outage.
mm-hmm,
Um, that was sometimes it would use oil. It would use 5W30 synthetic oil like it was water, and that could have been from missized fuel line. It could have been from lack of good maintenance, um, valve adjustments. Um, it could have been used heavily in its environment prior to when you
mm-hmm,
see it when the grid was rougher in that area. It got tons of hours on them. Um, my famous one that I'll never forget was going over towards Mendon, and a unit was on the side of a commercial building, air cooled, and the salt had rotted out the floor of it,
mm-hmm,
and it would never keep speed on Gen 1. It
mm-hmm.
was always off an overspeed. It was literally a rot box. And we were like, hey, customer, it's not gonna save your day, any
Mm-hmm.
longer. And at that point in time, there was an adjustment made for the unit. We quoted a new unit. Sometimes if the sales team was in the area, we'd actually meet with the sales team and the tech at the same time, because between the sales team and the tech, we really could walk of person into a replacement option and execute it. And I think the fastest one day was we and I think that was the one is we identified an issue within a week. We had a new unit set with Scott Forte within a week, and I think the following week they had an outage for like 6 or 8 hours, and they were tickled that everything was seamless.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cut and dry install, reinstall, repair, replacement, and operation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that stems from we had stuff in stock. We had
Mm-hmm.
equipment in stock, we had transfer
Yep.
switches in stock, we had generators in stock. We had people on hand to execute the job.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age, I can kind of see where the help isn't showing up to work to execute the jobs.
Yep.
So, with that
Yep.
said, we wouldn't. Today's day and age is different than even 10
Mm.
years ago, 5 years
Yep.
ago.
Yep. I agree.
So
I agree. Yep. With that.
it's it's interesting.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
that became a big thing for us, and we would make sure uh, that during the operations meetings with our operations manager, I'd pop my head in there every once in a while when things started to get a little heated. Sometimes I'd have to go in there and just see what's going on
Yep.
with that. But we made sure that 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 you guys were educated in identifying these units, or at least giving the customer notice
Yep.
that the reason why you have a standby generator is for reliability.
Yep.
And the reliability um, factor is getting less and less and less with this thing, especially you're getting close to that 15-year. In fact, one of the things that we used to do when things got slow, we would send out an email, because our database, we could pull up generators that were 12 years or older, and we would send out an email saying that we've got a sale going on, and that you might want to just verify operations of that unit, because you're getting close to the life expectancy of that machine. So we spent time marketing the replacement, educating you as the technicians, because you were the ones that were identifying it.
Yeah.
It wasn't us. There's no
Yep.
way. The customer very rarely knew that it was even 15 years old. A lot of
Yep.
them, I remember, because we were in business for 20 years before I was bought out. I mean, I was involved in not only the original installation, but the replacements of them.
Yeah.
And what made that easy is the gas was already there. The
Yep.
transfer switch was most of the time still usable, that we had it. and we just had to make a couple of small. The gas came in, the electric came in a little different spot than the older units, but we had those unit priced right up where we could go ahead and give a fairly quick price as far as a replacement generator goes. So I
Yeah.
think that's important. The techs out there, that they're educated in identifying that and telling the customer that, hey, your reliability is starting to fall off on this thing,
Exactly.
as far as that goes. So that's good. Well, Keith, look at thank you very much for being on the Standby
Yeah. Thank
Generator
you.
podcast here. This was a lot of fun. We talked
Yeah.
about a lot of things out there. Good luck with
Yeah.
everything that you're doing with
Thank
with
you.
the family and
Yep.
everything. You're getting bigger and bigger with the family,
Oh
with
yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
and I truly appreciate your time,
Yeah.
and
No, I
and
thank you.
we'll get caught up. We'll get caught up.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good, Keith.
All right.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
All right,
Yep.
talk to you later.
Yep. Bye.
There it goes. Yep. Mm, it's not for some reason. Maybe if I just log out. Hang on, let me just. Yeah, it's still counting. I don't know why. Maybe we'll just end the session because it is backed up. Okay. All right, Keith. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.